Vasudevaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Today we shall continue our important subject matter. The goal of human life, as we have said, is self-realization. We want to understand the meaning of these spiritual words because we have not been taught in our schools or even in our house or in our correspondence the meaning of these spiritual words we will be using. Self-realization means to realize that we are self or Atma or we are God. So to realize ourself means to realize God. That means we have been God and we have never known that. To realize is to know that we already are something but we have forgotten it and we have to be made aware of it. So self-realization is to realize that we are part and parcel of God. We are the ray of the sun, as we have said, or a drop of the ocean, but we have very similar characteristics. It is like mother and child also is the same relationship. So self-realization then is our real goal. Without that there is no happiness, and we also want to know what will be the benefit to me if I realize myself. The real benefit is that we often even don't know what we mean by God. When we say, I would like to realize God, what we are saying is that I would like to realize peace, I would like to be immortal because I do not like to die, nobody likes to die. So it is when we say I want to realize God or self-realization means peace. It also means joy. It also means happiness that is undisturbed. And nobody can deny the fact, whether we believe in God, whether we understand God, we do understand that we like to be happy, we like to be immortal, we like to be peaceful, and above all, we like love. We like to be loved and we want to love others. So we have often said that God is love, or we can even reverse the statement that love is God, and that nobody can deny that I would not want to be loved or that I don't like to love somebody. Because we always like to love somebody, whatever it may be, our profession, ourselves, our wife, our children, our mother, or the universe. So the meaning of self-realization or meaning of God is little bit clear to us, and we will be talking about that more later on in our scriptural analysis. But self-realization certainly is the most important goal, and it includes all other goals. So we are stressing the importance of the goal and the means to achieve that. Now, our wisdom of the ancient sages have also, out of experience, uh, decided or has guided us into 4 stages of a human being's life. The life of a human being, if we assume that he is going to live 100 years, can be divided into 4 parts, and this is inevitable, it is not arbitrary. We do go through these changes whether we like it or not, like from birth to growth to decay and death. Similarly, also in our aspiration as we live this human life, the life has been divided into 4 aspects or growth. And we call that ashram or the stages. The 4 stages are brahmacharya ashram, uh, that is the ashram or the stage when we are basically going to spend our time as a student. And brahmacharya actually means all our actions must lead to Brahman. And Brahman is another name of God or love. So all our actions, all our growth, our knowledge, our learning should lead us towards love. That is what we really mean by brahmacharya ashram. Charya means our actions, or whatever we do, whatever we think, whatever we perform is called charya, or our activities. And all the activities that we will be doing must lead us towards Brahman or to God or to love. Whichever word you prefer, God has no problem with it, and I think that you can even take it as a bliss or a joy, because God is also defined as Sat, Chit and Anand. These are some of the definitions of God that you may not have heard before, but these are the authentic understanding of the sages who have realized God, and they have put in language that we understand and experience, and that we all know that we like love or we like bliss or joy. Then the brahmacharya ashram is the first stage of a human being, first 25 years approximately, if you may say so, 25 years of our life should be spent in studying. Then the next stage, I will be coming back to it. The next stage is a grihastha ashram, means a person more often than not will enter into a married life where he establishes his house, his family, his children, and he will be spending 1/4 of his life from age of 25 to 50, let's say. That stage, which is also another important and significant stage that we all go through. The next is then the retirement stage from 50 to 75, where you begin to withdraw from these activities which are no more necessary, and then we transit ourselves from the worldly activity into more spiritual activities. We do need a stage we suddenly cannot change, so gradually we withdraw, and we will be talking about that stage. And the final stage is where we totally dedicate ourselves to our ultimate goal, realizing that time is short, that life is coming to an end, and I must realize my goal. So we concentrate and focus more and more, and our desires also for other aspect of life would have been fulfilled more or less, and so we spend more attention and energy into the ultimate goal that we call sannyas. So these four stages that human beings normally go, it is not necessarily that the particular location or people will go through, but all of us in one way or the other are going through these stages. It is not limited to a country, time, place or people or past or future. All human beings do go through this, whether you study or not. You may not go to school, but you are still necessarily, God has made our young life as a learning process life. Young people begin to learn by nature, and so we have just established that fact from experience. One of the most important thing is education. If we are educated properly, and that is the first stage, brahmacharya ashram, student's life, then I think the rest of our life will have a solid foundation on which we can build our life, and we can not only realize our goal, but we can also enjoy, because we know the path, we know the discipline required, so there is less obstacles or obstructions, less accidents, and more of a joy in achieving what we do want to achieve. However, we find that in student life, or what we call school or college life, nowadays we have a lot of deviation from the fundamental principles, and we want to realize that everything we are talking about is for our highest good. Many people might want to say that our good may not be necessarily highest, but it is built in us that we do want freedom, we do want joy, we do want to feel satisfied in our life. We don't want frustration at the end of the life that, well, I did not know and my life passed away. Had I known this thing, I would have done differently. So it is not new to say that our highest good is what we have been talking about. Then everything we are mentioning is leading us towards that highest good or goal. Now the student's life necessarily requires discipline. There must be self-control in students. Students are required to be humble. They should be obedient to the law of learning, to their teachers. They should perform what is expected of them. They are assigned the tasks that should be finished efficiently in time. They should be diligent in performing their task. Uh, it is very important that they don't deviate from their goal or pay attention to unnecessary activities which might take away our energy, particularly the mental energy. And that's why purity of the body and mind are very essential while you are a student. We do not spend our energy into going after the things that might hurt us. So purity or chastity is very important during this first stage. Usually when students used to go to the teacher's house, what we used to call rishis or munis, they had their school where they were teaching and the students will live with them. So it will be like a hostel life or a disciplined life in which they will be taught in-house sort of, where boys and girls will be educated and they all consider themselves as brothers and sisters and they treat each other as brothers and sisters. These are some of the important aspects that even we should incorporate in our modern days so that we can avoid a lot of difficulties that we are experiencing unfortunately. There is also taught simplicity in life. As a student, we are expected to be simple. We eat simple and healthy food. And even if we are a son of a king or a rich man, or whether you are a son or a daughter of a poor, we are all equal when we are learning. And this has been experienced in the past, that equality. Otherwise, we are nurturing pride. And education primarily is to teach us how to overcome pride and differences. Here we do not think of even man and woman or rich and poor, but rather that we are all children of God, and that is what the purpose of our learning is. So more we learn about equality among ourselves, the better education we are getting. Nowadays we notice that more of a distinction between rich and poor or some other intellectual abilities try to distinguish rather than look into unity. And this is what we need to learn. We need to learn humility. We need to learn equality among us because we are all children of same God. So even the dresses and whatever they wear would make them feel equal and not walk with pride and superiority complex. Necessarily we know that there were no drugs, no drinks, no smokes. These are not the things that are helpful. The young people should not need that. They are already healthy as they are. The rules of going to bed early and rising early, these are some of the things that for young people very essential. We have been taught this through the ages, thousands and thousands of years of our experience tells us that we get the best out of life if we follow these disciplines. The students were also taught during this period the activities in the house, how to cook. Girls will be taught about cooking and sewing and other aspects. The boys will be taught about agriculture and tending to cattle or cleaning in the garden or working in the garden. So each one of us were not only trained on the book knowledge, but life itself had been given a total understanding and performance and ability to do little things, because sometimes we notice that some of us do not even know how to handle a piece of utensil or a glass or how to cook or make even tea. Another aspect is to respect the teachers. I do not see nowadays what we see in the universities and schools, that there is not sufficient respect for the teachers, and the teachers also respected the children or the students as their own sons and daughters. That was the feeling among the teachers, that I am teaching my own son and daughter. Nowadays we have made it more like a business, and education should never be looked upon as a payment and just finishing a task or in 4 years getting a college degree or something. Moderation in everything was another aspect that was taught, always serving the elders. And this discipline was taught. The teachers did not expect reward except their basic needs, which were fulfilled. their objective was always to go towards God, and that they were serving God in teaching the students. These were the feelings that were inlaid in us in the old days, and these disciplines, these feelings certainly needs to be brought back if we want to be really happy. Education should not be made as a business in terms of the name and fame. Education is to make us humble, and that we treat the whole creation and everyone as a creation of God. And if that is what we learn, then certainly we would be much more happier later on. We look upon females as mothers because we know that there are a lot of problems we create, particularly when we are young, boys and girls, and early sexual contacts and all those things create a lot of problem, while we should be concentrating on education because we have our life still cut out for future family life also. They, I noticed that students in those days were not even cutting jokes at women or wasting their time in unwarranted activities. So we feel that if we can bring some of these disciplines, the goal of life, the ultimate happiness, and the instruments that we are teaching them, then I think that the students of the future will be much more well equipped, not only to be happy, but they will be able to solve a lot of their problems that are yet to come when they start their family life. So, having said this about the first stage of life, I would say the student, when he has graduated, and the students were not graded necessarily because somebody was smart so that everybody should be like this, but each student was paid attention according to his ability, his background, his past karmas, and he was graded according to his own improvement rather than comparing with other students, which is a very important thing. I think that we should not treat human beings like a herd of cows or animals. Each student, boy or a girl, should be respected according to their sanskar, and they should be taught and graded according to their own progress rather than comparing progress of one against the other. That again creates an unwarranted difficulties and complexes. So each one should be paid attention the way their full growth can be achieved. Now the next life was grahasthashram, or the family life, after you have been educated, in which you have been told your discipline, your responsibilities. You are taught that if you do get married, which will be the next stage between age of 25 and 50, a pretty appropriate age. But before that, during the student life, it was the body was kept rather pure, and very little thought they would be giving to sex or family during that time, because everything we do requires attention, and as soon as we deviate our attention from our goal of studies, then of course we will not be getting the best out of study because we split our energy. So the family life was reserved for the next stage, which we call householder's life or grahasthashram. And each of the stage is called ashram, and ashram means sanyam, or what we call a disciplined life. Everything had a control and moderation in performing their duties. What we will be calling yama and niyama, that is the discipline. We say ahimsa, satya, brahmacharya, asteya, anaparigraha. That is to be truthful, to be non-violent, or to love our fellow men, to be continent, to be pure in body and mind, not to steal or not to expect unnecessarily things that we don't need and burden ourselves and lose our time and energy in our life. So these were some of the fundamental teachings that was necessary in student life and in all the ashram. In other words, throughout the human life, some of these principles, being truthful, non-violent, purity of the body and mind, non-stealing, not deceiving anyone, and of course not hoarding things that we don't need. These fundamental principles have been taught in our Sanatan Dharma throughout, if you will notice, from Buddhism down to any denomination of the Sanatan Dharma had this fundamental foundation on which it was built. And we will be talking about that more later on. Now, the householder's life is a very significant life. It is respected by the sages because if we didn't have marriages and children, then of course we wouldn't have this world. So we are all born out of our parents. It is not a life that we should look down upon just because we are married and we have children, but rather we should respect this stage even more than other stages, because this is where we are given birth and this is where we are going to learn from our mother and father, and we get our sanskar from them. So I think that the married life is a very responsible life. The partners should be pure before they get married. We should keep our purity for our married life. In old days, the difference between boy and girl was rather minor. Boy may be at least maybe a couple of years older than the girl. The children also should be the object. The object of marriage, according to our saints, is that if we have the desire to have children, then we should marry and then we should take the responsibility. Sex was never an object in human life because we have gone through several stages in animal life type situation that we have come to a point as a human being that here we have an opportunity to realize God. And so everything we do is beyond animal nature, and human being then necessarily looks upon things that would lead him to the universal principle or self-realization. So even married life was not necessarily a sexual life, but it was to learn and help each other to control their sexual desires or other desires, and to contain those desires. Marriage was necessarily a good institution where we become responsible and not wander like animals. So married life should be considered a very responsible stage. We should respect each other, and that the sexual contact should be only for children. Like if you want two children, then that is what you will be having contact with each other. And then some of the saints have said that after a couple of children, you should live like brother and sister. Now this may sound a little bit more radical for normally because we have not been taught, but really the married life was to learn and to advance towards God. So if we have a couple of children, they are going to teach us the way we raise them, the discipline them. It is a school, and we all will be learning. The price even sometimes we have to pay by sacrificing for the children, the way we have to raise them. Mother requires to sacrifice her life, father has to earn and he pays attention to the requirement. So all these things is an education for all of us, the responsibility, the price, if we want to call that price to pay. But if we love, then it should not be considered price but a joy. But most of us sometimes don't pay attention after we have children, and I think that we would be called upon later on the responsibility and our behavior once we have children. So I think that the family life is the most important stage. The family life, we are expected to help the other people also, yajna, tap and dance, there is sacrifices, there is a control, there is a helping other people financially or otherwise. These were some of the things taught to us, not to be selfish. So not to earn on the wrong means, and whatever we earn, we try to keep minimum that we need for our decent life, healthy life, and also then help others. This was expected of family life. Certainly, gambling, stock marketing, and all other aspects of earning was never recommended because that causes us a lot of pain and suffering. All our hard work sometimes we lose money. I think there is greed, there is lust, and there is pride. These are the things that causes us a lot of problems. So in order to avoid the problems and obstructions to our happiness, I think that it is good that we recognize some of the principles that we have found from experience. Generally, the saints recommend that our wife, our children, our mother, our father, we are all like birds who happen to be have come on a one tree. We will stay for a while and fly away. We are all like travelers. We have met in the plane or in the train, whether it's wife or children or mother or father or friends. It is all a temporary situation. We want to do the best of what is given to us and not get attached or create an ownership. Wife and husband should not consider each self as owner of each other, but rather friends, equal, and respect and dignify each other as the creation of God or the messenger of God. These were some of the things that have been taught, and we will be coming to that when we talk about Gita. Householders' duties are very, very important, particularly the responsibilities when we have children. We notice nowadays that we don't pay as much attention and children don't get love from other people than the mother. And if mother works, then we find that she doesn't have time to pay attention to the child, and it is her single most duty that if she has given the birth, that she raises the child as her own with full love and attention in raising the child. So these are then some of the things that we in the family life, an important life, we must discipline ourselves if we want to be happy and if we want to avoid the friction that we often normally find because we do not want to pay the price or what we say that there is no free lunch. Responsibility goes with everything we do. So I hope that we will try to understand these principles and hopefully apply as much as possible, or if we have deviated from it, we would hope that for our own good and happiness we will return to these fundamental principles. It is not ancient or new or old. They are always applicable and they will always be applicable according to our Sanatana Dharma. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.